One of them looked like he could have run for office. The other looked like he could not look you in the eye. One drove across state lines hunting for prey. The other waited at home for prey to walk through his door. Both killed in ways America has spent decades trying to forget. Neither succeeded in being forgotten. Tonight, Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, two of the most infamous predators in modern history. Two completely different methods. Two completely different appetites. One question: who was truly more dangerous? Welcome back to Evil vs. Evil, Monsters of History. This is episode 2. Born in Burlington, Vermont, in 1946, Theodore Robert Bundy entered the world inside a home for unwed mothers. His mother was 22 and unmarried, which in post-war America was a kind of social death sentence. So the family lied. Ted was raised believing his grandparents were his parents, and his mother was his older sister. He did not learn the truth until he was a young man, and when he did, something in him quietly shifted. By adolescence, Ted had developed two parallel identities. On the outside, he was bright, well-spoken, and remarkably handsome. On the inside, he was already a peeping Tom, a thief, and a fantasist. He attended the University of Washington. He studied psychology. He volunteered at a suicide crisis hotline alongside crime writer Anne Rule, who would later describe him as one of the kindest men she had ever met. He worked on political campaigns. By every visible measure, he was a man with a future. In 1974, that future began to bury bodies. It started in Washington state. Young women, mostly college students, mostly with long brown hair parted down the middle, began to vanish. Bundy's method was simple and devastating. He would approach his victims in public, in daylight, sometimes wearing a fake cast or sling, and ask for help carrying something to his car. The request was always small. The trust was almost always granted. And then the trust was repaid with a tire iron to the skull. He moved across state lines as the heat closed in. Washington, Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Florida. The bodies kept appearing in shallow graves, dump sites, ravines. Some were never found. He was arrested. He represented himself in court. He escaped twice. The second escape took him to Tallahassee, Florida, where on the night of the 15th of January 1978, he entered the Chi Omega sorority house and attacked 4 women in 15 minutes, killing 2 of them. Weeks later, he abducted 12-year-old Kimberly Leach from her middle school. That was the killing that ended him. He was convicted, and on the 24th of January 1989, he was executed in Florida's electric chair. He confessed to 30 murders before he died. Investigators believe the real number is well over 100. That was Bundy, the hunter who looked like the man next door. Born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1960, Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was a quiet child in a household that was anything but quiet. His parents fought constantly. His mother suffered from severe mental illness and was heavily medicated throughout her pregnancy. His father was distant. From an early age, Jeffrey was withdrawn, unsettling, and obsessed with the insides of dead animals. He collected roadkill. He dissolved carcasses in acid in the family shed. He told his father, with clinical curiosity, that he wanted to see what the bones looked like clean. By his teenage years, he was a full-blown alcoholic. He drank in school. He drank in church. He drank alone in the woods behind his house. And in 1978, just weeks after his high school graduation, he committed his first murder. His name was Stephen Hicks. He was a 19-year-old hitchhiker. Dahmer picked him up, took him home, drank with him, beat him to death with a dumbbell, and then dismembered the body in his parents' garage. He buried the remains in the backyard. He was 18 years old. For 9 years after that, Dahmer did not kill again. Then in 1987, the killing resumed. This time it did not stop. Over the next 4 years, Dahmer murdered 16 more men and boys. His victims were almost all young, almost all gay, and almost all men of color, which is one of the reasons his crimes went undetected for so long. The Milwaukee police did not look very hard for missing black and brown men in the 1980s. Dahmer knew that. He counted on it. His method was unlike anything in American criminal history. He would meet victims at gay bars, bathhouses, or shopping malls. He would offer them money to come back to his apartment and pose for photographs. Once there, he would drug them, strangle them, and then he would experiment. He drilled holes into the skulls of living victims and injected acid into their brains, attempting to create what he called zombies, compliant living dolls who would never leave him. He preserved heads in his freezer. He kept skulls on his shelf. He cooked and ate parts of his victims. He was finally stopped on the 22nd of July 1991, when a victim named Tracy Edwards escaped from his apartment with a handcuff dangling from his wrist and flagged down police. What officers found inside apartment 213 of the Oxford Apartments became one of the most horrifying crime scenes in American history. On the 28th of November 1994, an inmate named Christopher Scarver beat Dahmer to death with a metal bar in a prison bathroom. He was 34 years old. That was Dahmer, the collector who waited at home. Now let us put them side by side. Category 1. Charm and manipulation. Bundy was a manipulator of the highest order. He could walk into any room and make himself the person you trusted most. Every victim approached him willingly. Every one of them got into his car without a fight. Dahmer had charm too, but of a different kind. His was quieter, sadder, more pitying. He did not dazzle. He invited. In one of the most shocking failures in American policing, 2 officers actually returned a 14-year-old victim, Conorak Synthesomphone, naked and bleeding, back into Dahmer's custody, because Dahmer convinced them the boy was his adult lover having a domestic dispute. The boy died within the hour. Bundy weaponized charisma. Dahmer weaponized invisibility. The edge is Bundy. Category 2. Method and physical capability. Bundy was a hunter. He attacked, often with overwhelming force, often in seconds. He used blunt instruments, ligatures, and his bare hands. Dahmer was a collector. He almost never killed without first sedating his victim. His murders were slower, quieter, more deliberate. He was not a hunter. He was a taxidermist of human beings. In sheer physical danger to strangers, Bundy is the more frightening force. The edge is Bundy. Category 3. Operating range. Bundy killed across at least 7 states: Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, Idaho, California, Florida. He drove thousands of miles. Dahmer operated almost entirely within a few square miles. Every murder after his first took place in or near Milwaukee, most of them inside a single apartment. Bundy's reach was continental. Dahmer's reach was the length of his hallway. The edge is Bundy. Category 4. Evading capture. The Bundy 7. Bundy was caught 3 times. He escaped twice. He represented himself in court. He gave interviews. He cultivated fans. He proposed to a woman during his own trial and married her in the courtroom. He survived inside the system for over a decade. Dahmer was caught once, by accident, and immediately confessed to everything. He showed officers where the body parts were. The edge here is Bundy by a wide margin. He was a survivor. Dahmer was relieved to be stopped. Category 5. Sheer darkness of the crimes themselves. This is where the math changes. Bundy killed. He killed a lot. But what he did after the killing falls within the recognizable patterns of sexual homicide. What Dahmer did has almost no precedent in American criminal history. The drilling, the acid injections, the attempts to create living slaves, the cannibalism, the preservation, the shrine he was building in his apartment of human skulls and bones, intended as what he called a temple to himself. Bundy was a murderer. Dahmer was something else. The edge here, unmistakably, is Dahmer. So the categories split 4-1 in favor of Bundy. But categories do not capture everything. Here is the wild card. What if these two had ever crossed paths? Imagine it. Bundy on a road trip across the Midwest in the summer of 1989. He stops at a bar in Milwaukee. He notices a quiet, awkward, blonde man sitting alone with a beer. They strike up a conversation. Who walks out of that bar? Bundy would have read Dahmer immediately. He would have seen the loneliness, the strangeness, the controllable surface. Bundy would have considered Dahmer prey, but Dahmer was waiting at home. Dahmer was operating on his own terrain. Dahmer had already proven willing to invite men into his apartment and walk them into a trap. If Bundy had accepted that drink, that ride, that invitation, even Bundy's instincts might not have saved him. It is the only matchup in history where the answer might depend entirely on whose apartment they ended up in. The verdict. By the categories, Ted Bundy wins. He killed more people. He covered more ground. He fooled more systems. He evaded capture longer. He was the more dangerous predator to the general public. But here is the part you cannot ignore. Ted Bundy is the version of evil that America has learned to recognize. Charming, mobile, hidden in a suit. We have built our entire true crime industry around men like him. Jeffrey Dahmer is the version we still do not know what to do with. There is no profile for him. There is no playbook. The pieces of his psychology, the cannibalism, the necrophilia, the lobotomies, the loneliness so vast it became homicidal. They do not fit any clean category. He was not hunting for power. He was hunting for company. He killed because he could not bear for anyone to leave the room. Bundy was the charmer. You could see how it happened. Dahmer was the cannibal. And the more you learn about him, the less you understand. The winner is Bundy. The one you cannot stop thinking about is Dahmer. Next episode, Kim Jong-il versus Saddam Hussein. Two paranoid dictators, two regimes built on fear. One was isolated behind a wall. The other was aggressive and surrounded by enemies. Which of them built the more dangerous machine?